back into the future
Back to the future, baby.
because we know exactly what's going to happen. Well, because we're recording this podcast, so we clearly,
We have a
we
little bit
clearly,
of insight. Yeah.
we can paint this picture because we're not only living in this moment.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Joe, Dr. Energy Piazza.
Rara is in the house. Catherine at Sarah Myers.
Welcome back to BU Network Podcast, Conversations Worth Having. Hey, Rara, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great. This is in retrospect, this was more fun than I thought it was going to be.
I know, right? And I get to, it's fun we're going to have a guest, Rhonda Moffatt from the Energy Institute. So, as Dr. Energy, this is right up my alley. I can't wait to chat with her about the energy, what the year of the dragon is going to bring, and where the energies have been before, and how that connects us all. I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
And the reference that I just made, as if we are in the future looking back into the future.
Back to the future, baby.
Because we know exactly what's going to happen. Well, because we're recording this podcast, so we clearly
we have a little bit of insight. Yeah.
We can paint this picture because we're not only living in this moment, we're living in that moment. Okay,
you're giving away our secrets of how we record.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm gonna say about that is,
okay. That's okay.
Yeah, when you're a guest, when you work with us, when you're a guest on this podcast,
I've never heard that statement before. When you work with us.
This is what happens. Yeah. You go to another conversation that takes you in a place that you didn't expect.
Yeah.
And you start to have fun and enjoy yourself. And that's what we did. Like we're going to have a lot of fun with Rhonda.
Yeah.
And we do have fun with Rhonda. Plus we have a reoccurring guest, right? That's a four-year return.
I know. I can't believe it's been 4 years since we last spoke on the podcast. I mean, we've spoken with her many times since, but not on the podcast.
That like sort of blew my mind that it went so fast. And the practice over the years of us interviewing guests and unfolding, peeling off the onion skin, so to speak, the layers of what truly turns people on in their life and what they're about. This is what's going to happen in this episode. And we've gotten really skilled at having guests that are able to open up. So we're able to see what is inside, really, in the mind's eye, because you talk about that sometimes. Talk in the mind's eye about something and bring it out. It's going to be one of those podcasts. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. Don't miss this.
And just before we get on over to the interview with Rhonda, make sure you listen to the end. We let out a little secret about the BU network at the end, so you might want to listen all the way through. It's not at the very end, so just maybe listen all the way to the end.
And what about this? Just like Fine Waldo, if you think you know what we're talking about, drop us a message and let us know that you have found what it is that we are letting this little secret, the best kept secret. Remember that, Dr.
Best
Energy?
kept secrets of powerful presentations.
Yeah, that's a good blast from the past. Yeah. Listen to it all. Let's get on over to Rhonda Moffatt and let's see how she transforms the energy in this podcast with us.
All right. See you on the other side. All right, well, welcome back to another episode of the BU Network, Conversations Worth Having podcast. Today we have Rhonda Moffatt with us. Rhonda is a certified Feng Shui consultant based in Ottawa, Ontario, and she founded the Energy Institute in 2016. Rhonda creates and manages the online platform of the Energy Institute. She is a speaker, an educator, an advisor, and author. She collaborates with a growing clientele on issues like motivation, goal setting, and energy work. Rhonda is also an experienced Reiki master and specializes in Eastern disciplines such as tea leaf reading, tarot, and I Ching. Her work is recognized by the Natural Health Practitioners of Canada and the Academy of Naturopaths and Natural Therapists of Canada. Welcome, Rhonda.
Thank you for having me.
Rhonda, as I was listening to Dr. Energy introducing you, what came to my mind is this is your second appearance with us.
It is. Thank you
So
for having me back.
yeah, you've been with us before, and a lot has happened probably since that appearance. And today we'll talk about what's going on with you right now. But then maybe what we'll do is we'll talk about 365 days. It's more than that. It's been more than 365 days. What took place? So a lot has happened, and I know that you're really excited about the things that we have to talk about today. So first of all, I like to geographically identify where we are. I'm in Toronto right now. You're in Ottawa, yes?
I am in Ottawa.
Yeah, awesome.
And so am
Cool.
I.
Yeah, you
Hey, we
both have
outnumber
little
you today.
And
you
Woo-hoo.
do.
you're right
So
over
I am
there, Joe. And over there is West Ottawa. I'm over here in East Ottawa.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a triangle,
Mm,
right? You making snow bunnies today?
absolutely not. We could,
No.
but we're not doing it.
That was last night when it was snowing. We had a fair number. I don't know how many centimeters of snow we had for our Canadian people. About an inch maybe of snow, 2.5
Hmm.
centimeters, something like that.
Well, we're getting it today over here. So yeah, that's what's nice about what we're doing right now is that we could all be anywhere and then we can be together. And we talk about the Energy Institute. It really means just that, right? We're bringing energies together and you are focusing on that in not only in your life, in your business, and you've kicked it up a couple of notches, not by accident. I know it's all a plan for you. And I'm a big fan of your daily advice and words of wisdom. Some people might call it social
Thank
media
you.
posting, but I really look at it as something more than that. I don't look at it as you're posting to, get something. I look at it as you're sharing your wisdom with us. And it really means something to follow someone who you know, like, and trust and like want to know what you're going to say. And today you gave some sage advice. Today being January 23rd, 2024. What's the advice that you gave to us today?
I think the post today was about the Year of the Dragon being good for arts, media, graphics, all things creative. So to lean into that. Am I right? Is that what I posted today? I
Yes.
do it. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning when I post. This is later in the afternoon. I think that's what it was.
Yes, I like to reframe that as advice, because post seems a little bit distant and disconnected. I
Mm-hmm.
often hear that social media is so antisocial because those four letters are like, I posted it, go look at it. But I feel that you're sharing advice. And that's how I like to look at what I share. I share advice and lifestyle advice because a post means I could, and no, this is not a hit against any social media businesses, but a post is, in the case of what you're doing, it's not something that you've just told someone to go and choose for you. Even if you have a company, you've advised them on what it means it's relevant to today. And that's what's important.
Yeah.
Right. So full disclaimer, what's the word I want? Interpret energy. So everybody will receive an interpret energy, or as you say, the advice for the day, which I think is a little bit heavy. It's simply a suggestion, and you will interpret it for what
An
it means to
invitation.
you. An invitation.
Yes,
Thank
that's
you.
good. That's great. Take a look at it.
Right. So if it resonates with you, and perhaps you're a graphics art student, or perhaps you're thinking about stretching out your company in that way, or maybe you're going to brave something new in this Year of the Dragon, know that the energy is connecting there and it's a great year for it. That's how the energy works. And that is kind of what we do here at the Energy Institute. When we see the great, we're going to connect you to it. When we see the crap, we're going to protect you from it. That's the intention.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's open. That's cool. It's open. People can do what they want with it.
100%.
So I have a question for you to sort of kick things off.
Okay.
It has actually almost been 4 years to the day since we last
Wow.
spoke on the podcast. We've spoken several times since then, but it's almost 4 years. It was January 9th, 2020 when we posted the last episode.
Wow.
Yes. So curious what changes have gone on, major or minor in the last 4 years, and where has the energy been the last 4 years to where it's now and where we're going in this year of I think it's the wood dragon.
Yes, absolutely right. There have been enormous shifts. We came through the metal years being very tight, very constricted. When we were processing and looking at the charts in those years, we would see like fluid and the lungs. So we interpret the charts as readers. We know it's going to have something to do with those things and to be
Right.
cautious of those things. I think when we spoke, the book had just been published, but I don't know that
Yes.
the card decks had been published.
I don't think so. I think you were working on it.
So I now have 3 card decks, and December 2023, I launched a school, and I have a quarterly e-zine that is now an official quarterly e-zine where you can sign up on the website. And I'm going to stretch it out this year to paid subscriptions where my card decks will be electronic and online. So lots has happened, lots going on for the Energy Institute, to be sure. But for people, if you've seen the people, there have been huge shifts, huge transitions. And we can talk about that today because it's going to ease in the year of the dragon. It's still going to be a transformative year, but it's newness and opportunities and opening up to things.
Cool.
And I'd like to mention something. I know you don't like the word advice, but I'm going to use it because it was excellent. And here's the reason why. Last year, you gave not a suggestion, we had a conversation and you gave me advice, and that was crystal clear. So because of our friendship, like we talk about, right? Please and thank you is implied. But you told me something that, and I don't know if it was it was the year before. You told me about giving money away. We talked about that. That was crystal clear. You were not suggesting it. You were telling me, if you do not do this, it will be taken. So we had a heart to heart. That we'll call that a professional, talk. That was worth
Okay.
its weight in gold. People should pay for that advice. That's not something they get for free. Invitations are free. Advice is what people pay for. And when you gave me that advice, I immediately opened up portals to where I would give money away. And the return that I received as a result of that, unbeknownst to me, because as you said, we don't know where it's going to show up. And I thought, I'm not going to decide later what I'm going to do with what you're saying. I'm going to act on it. There's no reason to question it. And as I opened up not one portal, many portals to give my money away, there were some very lucky people as a result of that because I focused on it. It was purely done for selfish reasons. I did that because you told me to.
To be fair, I think the advice was something about choose where you want to donate this year because what you put out will come back. But in your case, it happened like overnight. You donated and then it came back the next day or something. It was crazy.
Yep.
She's a strong manifester.
What she manifested was huge.
Yep.
That was very good.
So thank you. Thank you for that. And anyone who's lucky enough to have the opportunity to listen to your words and take them strongly the way I did will see benefits. And I know you have a school and you have many multiple streams of passing the information on to people. I'm just curious, what's your favorite way to talk to a person? So here we are right now, we're in different cities. Like, what's your jam?
Over an adult beverage.
There we go. Now we've got an
lovely
interview
California cab sauv and some energy conversation.
Okay,
if I get to
remember
choose,
that.
that's the box I'm checking.
It's a good box.
It is. It's a great box, honestly. Yeah,
Looks like I'm going to have to take a ride over to you.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Dr. Energy, maybe
Yes.
you could get the candles and we'll bring the wine and we'll bring some food. Oh, tell me you have
There we
them
go.
right there.
Very, yeah.
Okay, of course he's
for
ready.
being prepared.
Okay.
Very nice.
So we'll bring the wine and the food to your place, and let's do what Rhonda really likes to do.
Well,
have that.
It depends when you come and where my place will be because I'm going to be on the move.
Are you moving?
Oh,
I am moving.
It's a great year for it. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have so many options for you to look at.
We will discuss
All
some
right.
of those. Yes.
Amazing. Okay, it's a great year for a move. Is that what you just said? That's wonderful.
So huge shifts. We're all in deep shift right now,
Oh,
whether
yeah.
we know it or not.
shift?
Clarify what you
are we in
said.
deep shift or deep other
Clarify
S
that,
word?
please.
So there's three different things that are happening right now.
Right.
The first is more Western astrology. It's not my expertise, so I will touch upon it because it's a huge thing. The planet Pluto has moved, and I think that was the 20th or 21st of January, ending a 15 or 16 year, depending on your placement, karmic cycle. So those 15 or 16 years of crap have now moved on. And that happened last week. So many people in 2024 have said the energy feels fresh, or it feels bright, or I feel connected to something, or they're just motivated to do something else. That has happened. We're standing in that energy. Look at her.
Nice.
Look at her. The second thing that we're coming into is, if we're going to talk Feng Shui for a moment, Feng Shui has lived in 20-year cycles. This is the year, so we're still in the year of the rabbit until the 10th of February. But we're also at the end of what is called period 8. So we're completing that 20-year cycle. And as of the 4th of February, we start period 9, which is the next 20-year cycle. So newness, new opportunities, transitions with that. And with the year of the dragon, which comes in on the 10th. So the period 9 comes in on the 4th. The year of the dragon comes in on the 10th. It's a young dragon. So think of how kids run out and do things and don't think about it. So this is the year to strategize and stay the course. Because if you just fly out there, because we've been so contained in these metal years that you just want to try everything and, oh, we're going to do this and this is going to be great. Slow your roll, make a plan, stay the course. It does, money starts to show up. There's more water in the chart. There's more wealth in the chart around Q3, so around autumn. So really plan your course, be patient, be kind. There is an argumentative star at the center of all spaces this year. So children will be more in your face. Be kinder to your spouse this year. Be kinder to coworkers this year. Simply lead with that. Try to respond and not react. You're having a moment, not a lifestyle choice, So just easy does it.
Wow, that's a lot of changes coming up.
A lot.
And I like the advice to be kind. I mean, that's advice that we could take every day, right? Is be kinder to people and to ourselves. And it's interesting that we're coming in, that the Feng Shui and the Eastern philosophy of coming to the end of period 8 and starting period 9. I follow a gentleman who's a marketer, and he's written a book called The Pendulum, and he talks about 20-year cycles as well. And basically one end of the pendulum is we, and the other end of the pendulum is I. So if you think of like the 80s and the movie Wall Street, Gordon Gekko, greed is good, that's sort of the height of the I. And then the we is more like the collective and how we're doing it. So we hit the end of the I again, and we're starting to swing back towards the we, but we're still in some of that I energy. So you could see over the last few years how we've played out, the world has played out in that I energy. It's been, the focus has been very personal, very, I don't know, ego focused, but very, very inner directed on ourselves. And the last year or so has really been that energy starting to shift towards the we, and that energy is leaving, kicking and screaming like a kid.
That's a very good interpretation. So the Feng Shui philosophy suggests that period 8 was about the exaltation of young men. So the Mark Zuckerbergs that made $1 bazillion out of college. As we move towards period 9, it's shifting to feminine. So more women in power, look for more women presidents. So whereas traditionally, I don't want to, step on anybody's toes, where women would work with or for men, it's shifting where women will be in the place of power and men will be working with or for women. Just in that pendulum switch, as you so eloquently stated. So if you are my male clients, generally I say, surround yourself with women. You need the yin yang. And again, coming into arts and culture, also moving into period 9, it's looking good for the next 20 years. So if you have a me in your life, if you're my accountant, you've already connected with that particular energy, you're in good shape. You have talked with me on your BU podcast, so you're already aligned with the energy, you're in good shape. So for whatever those things mean to you, the more that you can connect with it, the more you can align with it, the more the smoothness of that energy will pull you through the next period.
Right. Cool.
Generally speaking, there's lots of uprisings, war, changes in power right now.
Right.
women are less to go to war when they're in power than men are to go to war. So we'll see what happens. That's a very general statement. So again, don't write in, don't complain, don't comment. I'm simply interpreting the charts based on what we've known for years and years and years.
Don't unfollow you. I have a question about people who are, let's use the word less willing. So some people who are more in a habit of being around the habits that they currently have, and perhaps change being less favorable to them. What's going to happen if someone's not as flexible as Gumby that we see in the back of Dr. Energy there? We see Gumby in the back and even on the, yeah, right? So Gumby, and what's the horse's name?
Pokey.
Pokey.
Pokey. So Gumby and Pokey, right? Like we can move them around and they're pliable. I love that.
If you're wondering what you learn on this podcast, it's
amazing. The references.
Pokey.
The references that we have, that the things that keep us going. What happens if people are not like Gumby and Pokey and they're like something else and they're more rigid? How are they going to fare in this phase?
It's interesting to me. I call it resistant. One of my own teachers, when I first started studying energy, to be in the flow with that energy and understand that it is happening and thoughts become things, you can become so rigid. And she would just look at me and go, "You're resistant. Why are you resistant?" So you will find that you will want something or you will point towards something and it will become less resistant to you. And when things around you start to change, you're going to start to change. I mean, I'm one of these people that learned to type on a typewriter in grade 7 in middle school, right? And then do you remember when computers came in and you're like, oh, I don't know about this. You're taking word processing. Nobody wanted to do it. Everybody thought it wasn't going to be here to stay.
Like the
But
internet.
then you adapt, right? So what will happen is change will happen around the people that are resistant, and they will quite naturally get into the flow.
Right.
I love the statement, the time to make a change is when there's a change, and this feels like it's appropriate.
Huge.
And just to go along with that, Rara, and Rhonda, what you were saying about the energy is how even somebody who's resistant, when they start to focus on something, it'll be less resistant. I've been reading a book by one of my mentors called The Seeker's Code, and Donnie Epstein talks about energy and energetics, and that not only do we tap into new energy and the energy influence us, as we respond and shift with the energy, that energy then also then shifts and affects the system, so the world at large as well. Of course, right? It's on both sides. It goes back and forth. It's the observer and the observed, right? They both affect each other. So the whole idea of what's the word I'm looking for? Objectivity in science is a farce, because as soon as you observe something, it changes. And even a scientist, what they choose to study is their own particular bias. So they're already going to have a bias about what they're studying, a certain perspective on what they're studying. Yes, you can limit some of the subjectivity, but you still have a bias towards what you're studying.
My brother's a mechanical engineer. You don't have to tell me.
There you go. So you know what I'm talking about.
Since we're giving book recommendations, I'd like Rhonda to give hers, but I want to tell you, I picked up for the second time in the last year, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, but the hardcover, the black leather.
It's right there.
Oh,
right on top.
okay. Do you have the black one?
No, I have the original,
paperback.
but I have the paperback, the original. Yeah.
Yes, I have the paperback as well, but I bought it feels like a very official, beautiful, the binding on it. So I have it in my hands again. Within the last year, I read it and I thought, I'm going to read it again this year because I have a feeling that I'm going to get something completely different out of it, not wait 5 years to pick it up. Right? Because you forget and then you're like, oh yeah, I didn't get, but I want to see how much of this really, there's a certain chapter that I like that I won't tell you because it's, I just won't until somebody asks me. Yeah, that's it. The power number. My chapter. That's my favorite chapter. So if you just think about that. So Rhonda, what book are you reading right now? Would you like to share with us?
I'm reading a book that somebody connected with me and said, let's have a one-to-one, let's chat. And he had written a book. So he's self-published. And I'm not sure if I should say what I'm reading right now. So I'm chewing away on that. But if I get to recommend a book, with so much loss that we have experienced, and in the passing of my mom, which happened a few years ago, somebody had recommended a book to me called Final Gifts. And I can't think of who it's by because it's I didn't expect this question on the podcast, but essentially it was written by two palliative care nurses, is what they did their whole career. And it's the transition as the human form transitions and what to expect and what to look for. And when you're with a loved one, my sister-in-law, Pat, there's a number of things that have happened just to know what was coming and what to look for. And these ladies have been bang on accurate in the number of times that I've applied it. So
We'll
that's a
look it
very
up right
interesting
now.
read.
Yeah, thank you, because we have reasons, right, that we go to books. There's a reason, and they come to us, and then the message that you just shared could be very, very
It's a bit
useful.
dark for this particular podcast, but by way of connecting to, like, we don't have power over those things,
It's a
right?
conversation worth having. We're not guided and with margins. This is about us.
I disagree about it being dark. I think that we don't address death and loss enough in our culture, and especially in the West, we tend to push it away. But if you look at a lot of places, especially like Eastern Europe and those types of places, our own culture, and even in the Italian culture, right? I remember my great grandmother, when my great grandfather passed away, like wailing and throwing herself on top of the coffin at the memorial. Like, this wasn't even in the church yet. This was still at the showing at the funeral home, and it's just a recognition of this profound sense of connection that we feel we're going to not have anymore. And I think that when we dishonor it and try to push that away in our culture, we lose something. We lose the richness. We lose our zest for life. It's because in acknowledging that death is part of life, we then live our life with more zest, more elan, more verve, more energy. And I think that changes things. When we push it away and pretend death doesn't exist, I think we lose some richness in our life.
And in my opinion, you can continue that relationship, right?
I agree, absolutely.
That essence, that being, that spirit still resides in you with whatever relationship and whatever it was that you had with a particular person, and you can continue. You're still going to have to think about that person. You're still going to be places to go, oh, last time I was here. So you can still continue those things, which makes it grander in some schemes, right? You don't have to let anything go. You just have to come to terms. Again, my opinion, my opinion. Other people have their opinion.
On this subject, funny little secret. On Father's Day and Mother's Day, I send a card to myself as if I'm sending it to my parents. Nice. And I still do that. And we're talking about over 20 years. And I create it for them energetically and physically and send it to myself, because I'm never going to stop wishing them and thanking them, wishing them well and thanking them for what they've done, and want to know what they're doing. And, we go to, you've heard of a medium, right? Like, you can talk to different people to talk to different people. There's more than a cell phone and technology. There's different energy levels of doing that. And I have done that. And
that's legacy, right? You are the legacy.
Right, exactly. You took the words right. Exactly. That was the next word I was going to say, Rhonda.
So as long as we are on this topic about death and dying and talking to and connecting with the energy of the people who've transformed. Remember, because energy can't be created or destroyed; it only changes form. I don't know if either of you have read it. It's a great book by Michael Newton, PhD, called Journey of Souls, and it's a case studies of life between lives.
Interesting.
So he was a psychotherapist, and he did a lot of past life work with his clients and people who had near-death experiences, and how the similarities between all the stories that are there and how people describe what they perceived as the afterlife. It's a really quite profound. It's called Journey of Souls.
Interesting.
Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you. So we have Think and Grow Rich. We have books about transformation and books about, what's the name of the book you said initially?
Journey of Soul. Oh, the one that Rhonda said, yeah.
And your first book? Yeah, the first book you were reading by your mentor, by Donnie Epstein?
No.
The Seeker's Code.
The Seeker's Code, right. So there's 4 books here, right? Plus Rhonda has the energy, Rhonda has a book
How to
as
See
well.
Energy, of course.
So,
and I suspect that this year that would be even more relevant as ever.
I would say yes, but it's my book. It's not for me.
We'll plug
you're
it
ahead
for
of
you.
your time. Yeah, you're ahead of your time, of course. So Rhonda, let me ask you another question, if you don't mind, because that's the purpose here, is to have conversations. In this conversation that we got into today, we're going around, right? We're sort of not only promoting, we're talking, we're having a conversation. When you do that with us today, because you have a sense that I'd like to tap into, what is the sense that you have between you and Dr. Energy and I and you? What you know, I don't have to say it 12 different ways. What is it that you're feeling so we could get the benefit of the energies that we've brought today to you? What's the sense you're getting?
So I'm not really clear on the question, but the word that comes to me is courage. I think these are very courageous conversations. I think it takes courage for us to stand here on a platform and talk about ancient crafts and the application of those crafts and transitions and energy and how we absorb or perceive those forms. I think it's very courageous. And I think that if more people could have these conversations, the collective angst, like if you've seen the people out walking around, there's an angst to them.
Oh, yeah.
And there's like they're trudging through, like everybody can relax. But if you think of all the people that don't have the courage to have these conversations, or think, yeah, you're putting on your tinfoil hat today and having these conversations, are going to be judged in some way, shape, form, or circumstance. That's the stuff that festers. That's the stuff that leads to the tightness and the discomfort, right? Like, if it's how you feel, or if it's your experience, let's talk about what that is. So courage is the word that comes to mind, which is also one of the levels of consciousness, right?
Right. I think that there are way more people out there that somewhat understand energy and are open to it, but they don't know where to go or who to speak to. They're not sure who in their circle they can speak about these things to. I remember this is going back almost 20 years, and I read a study that showed 92% of the people surveyed wished that their primary care practitioner would talk to them about spiritual matters.
Yes.
92%. And yet we're afraid to mention spirituality and spiritual and energy and all of these things. And I've been finding this in my practice as well, that when I just open that door for people, that you can just feel them kind of go,
I'm so glad you said
I'm
it.
so glad you said it. I can actually talk about it. I feel like I don't have to like hide it. And so, and I mean, Einstein talked about energy. Tesla was all about energy. All of these people, Oppenheimer, right? All of the quantum physicists, it's all about energy. So they understand energy, and quantum physics is just our current language for the mystical.
Well, that is kind of the point. Everybody calls it something different,
Right.
whatever the it is. So I've had clients that say, oh, they don't use the term meditate. So loosely, to me, prayer is the ask and meditation is the listen.
Right.
So people are so busy asking, and they want that Santa Claus being to just wave the magic wand and give them the gift, right? Where, it's about a process and you have to listen.
Bippity boppity boo.
And people will say, oh, I call that getting all the stuff out of my head, or I call that where, meditate, oh no, that's too shishi woo woo, but you're doing it, you're just calling it something else. Right. So it's really, when you do it long enough, I've now been at this long, you start to, you call it that, and you start to drill down. Easy does it through those conversations, but you get there. Yeah. But I do believe there's a common thread.
Yeah.
Consistency. It sounds like when we believe in ourselves, we're consistently improving. Constantly improving, I'd like to say. I don't know what the frequency is for some people, but I guess it depends. I would like to look at, like for us 4 years ago, when we interviewed you 4 years ago, we consistently grew, we constantly grew. I'm not saying we wouldn't have had this conversation 4 years ago, but we easily are open to conversations worth having. And there's not a reason why we couldn't, wouldn't, or shouldn't. So the growth around everyone with the interest of growth opens, as we have, opens the door to conversations, which is why we use that phrase, conversations worth having. They're worth having not just for us, but for everyone. And maybe they're hard ones, like you mentioned. They could be a hard conversation for someone to have.
And sometimes the interpretation. So I remember when, it's kind of a long story on how I came to study Feng Shui. but I thought, oh, I've studied it. I'll just go and study this. It is a philosophy that is years and years and years and years in the making. So as much as I was kind of glib on, oh, we're just going to do this, once you got into the practice and the depth of it. So to have conversations, maybe you're sitting in an airport lounge and you find a common thread to speak about how they interpret what that is, or what they know about what it's going to be different, right? So you have to be very careful with those differences, because the law exists. Again, the full disclaimer in the podcast. But people have those opinions, and some people are really resistant to those opinions, and other things can happen, which again will become a lesson. But I think that that's part of the resistance to it as well.
I don't know about you, but either of you, I love when I'm traveling to sit in an airport and you're in the waiting area at the gate, and people are just the anxiety and the freneticism that exists, and I just sit quietly, and everybody's people are on their phones and they're getting up and sitting down and kids are running around, and then I just close my eyes and quietly just focus on finding peace and ease within me, and invariably within less than 5 minutes, the whole place just kind of settles down, and the energy, the consciousness actually lifts, and so that anxiety disappears, that freneticism disappears, and people are all of a sudden, you can look, and then I just open my eyes and watch people, and you can see their shoulders come out of their ears, you can see the shoulders become less rounded, and the chest, they start to look up and look around and smile at each other. It's really quite a lot of fun to play with energy in that way,
without being intrusive.
Yeah, exactly.
Because as a general thing, to wrap yourself in protection, or your vehicle or the plane you're flying in, just quietly having that moment can help.
Right.
So you've also been on a plane with a screaming 2-year-old for the entire 6 hours of the flight.
That's where noise canceling headphones are really good then.
Again, the lesson.
That's nice that you do that. That's nice that you can.
It's great, because you can't actually, even with energy, you cannot force somebody to do anything, because then they'll push back against it. They'll resist it. You actually just have to offer it in general, and people will either accept it or not, either consciously or unconsciously, right? You have to be ecological about it.
The ethics that I've studied in 3 of the crafts are, you have to ask me.
Exactly.
If you want me to feng shui your house, you have to. I can't say, "Oh, this is terrible." They're not rude crafts, right? If you want somebody to do it, you have to ask for that thing.
I have an interesting story about that, if you guys don't mind. Quick little story.
Correct. Yes.
This is back when I was first started practicing. So this would be almost 20 years ago now, and had a husband and wife come into me for care. And they both claim to be very spiritual and all of these things. And the woman looks at me and she goes, "Your third eye is closed." And she goes, flicks me right in the forehead, like physically. Gotta open your third eye, and wham, like I've just come out of nowhere. And I was like, it was so intrusive physically and energetically that I didn't even ask permission. And they, needless to say, energetically, I had already, as soon as that happened, I energetically discharged them from care, and then they, within 1 or 2 visits, they just kind of said, "Hey, we're not coming back," blah blah. Yeah, it was not a pleasant experience. It's
important that people are, even with any type of learning or any type of transition, it's easier when you're receptive to it. So who are you to come in and be flicking at somebody's third?
And maybe from your perspective it's closed, but maybe from mine it's open. Because everybody can be on a different frequency, right? From a different perspective, and
I always ask if they're open to it, and then I always thank them for the opportunity to walk around in their energy for a little while, right? Share that, see what it looks like. Because again, if you're engaging me as whatever, you're a tea leaf reader, you're a tarot reader, you're a feng shui person, you're a Reiki person, I have to presume that we're somewhere in the vibe together, and that you're receiving things as I'm intending them, or you would have a different practitioner.
Yeah, exactly.
The energy would be different.
And that's why I asked you before. It leads right into what are you feeling? And that was
Courage.
like right. So
That's the
that was,
invitation. Yeah.
yes, that was the invitation because I was thinking at that moment, what are you feeling with us right now? The three of us, right? Like what's 4 years later, here we are. And what's the sense that you're getting?
We have
And
broken a lot of ground individually and as a group. Like
Yeah.
we talk off camera, believe it
Yeah.
or not, right? But so much has happened in the world individually with each of us and then as a group. So, you use the phrase ahead of our time. I don't, if it's ancient crafts, I'm not sure how much further ahead we are. But I like the integration of the old with the new. I think
Yeah.
it's a lovely foundation. I think you can trust those things because they've happened over thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And I think that the past, to sound cliche, is useful when used as a guidepost, but dangerous when used as a hitching post. So just allow it to guide you to the spaces that you're reaching towards.
Yeah.
Right?
Good advice.
Cool.
That's
yes,
good advice. If we're talking about
That's-
advice.
that I feel like that should go on a card.
No. I'm pretty sure I read it somewhere in my studies. It's probably not.
So can you say that again? So the past is useful as a gut. How did you say that?
It's useful when used as a guidepost, but dangerous when used as a hitching post. So we talked earlier about people that are stuck or don't
Right.
want to change or whatever.
Got it.
Okay. I mean, I guess Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone and the phones just look different, but they're actually handheld computers.
Yes, exactly.
And if you want to talk about what cars have become, they're actually driving phones, right?
Driving computers.
So call it whatever sells, but that is in fact what we're doing.
And I'm not sure where you're at with this, and Rara and I have talked about this a little bit. The digitization of our identities is it's fraught with a lot of peril. Let's say it that way. The more and more we get deeper and deeper into just living our lives online or in a digital space, you're going to lose your sense of, you lose that some of that connection with your self, capital S, and those energies, and we forget how to be this human being in this physical body. And I think that what I'm sensing in this energy is there's a bit of a pushback coming, or the energy is shifting on that. We're starting to already see a pushback against AI because it's already gone so far unfettered that people are like, whoa, wait a minute, this is going way too fast. How do we rein it in? And unfortunately, you can't, it's hard to put those things back in Pandora's box, right? And so how do we live with it now, and how do we put some guide rails around it so that we can still be human?
My opinion is it
Sure,
comes back
absolutely.
to the self. It comes back to the self, to
Yep.
your own boundaries with it.
Yeah.
So, I live my life in a practice just sounds horrible and cliche, but to wake up in the morning and open up all the curtains in the house and kind of welcome the day, and then in the evening to close everything and give thanks, it's just part of what that practice is, right? Even though I live in the Canadian North, I prefer the warmer temperatures, to walk around barefoot, to connect with the earth, to be in those spaces.
Right.
I couldn't imagine not. So AI, all you want, those things are necessary for human beings, for all beings, for living things.
Right.
Think of anything that's alive, animals, grass, trees, whatever it is. You need that oxygen, you need that care, you need that yin and yang, you need that rhythm of life. And I don't think you can just stick yourself in a computer, put yourself in a box for the day and do it year after year after year after year and expect that you're going to have something. You will have something at the end of that. I'm just not sure if it's, something positive or negative. Look at the
We
kids,
talked
the
about
kindergarten
this.
kids that learned online. They have no attention span and they wanted to be in here for 4 hours a day, right?
Or more. Yeah.
We talked about this the other day. We used the word burnout, people that are experiencing burnout from things that they had conditioned themselves to do for years, let's say even as a business model. And then after how many years are they experiencing burnout? Some sooner than others, but in fact, it's not sustainable.
You need to replenish. Like, I think, Rob, you and I have talked about this, where you need to have something when you go home at night or wherever it is you go to that makes you whole, WHOLE, not dig a hole and jump in. So that when you get up in the morning, you're presenting as your whole self to whatever it is, whether you're, a wife, a husband, a sibling, or whatever it is, a teacher. so you have something to give. And if you can't replenish to make yourself whole, WHOLE, that becomes tougher to do. There's less to give, and you're not serving yourself or your purpose at that point.
One of my mentors said basically this very thing to me. He said, we are part of the rhythm of nature because we are part of nature as human beings. And to forget, when you forget that you are part of nature, you're going to be all out of sorts. You're going to feel disconnected. Things are going to feel rough, resistance, all of these things. But when we remember and reconnect with the rhythms of nature, remembering that sometimes that rhythm is a downtime, like right now, where we should be going inside and connecting with ourselves and with each other, hopefully face to face, more so than online. And then in the spring, we come out with these new ideas that we've been turning over in our minds and testing out over the winter or over the hibernation type months. And the summer comes into full bloom, and in the fall we reap the rewards of that, and then we do the whole process over again. When we connect with those rhythms, life becomes much more, as we say, in the flow.
In flow, yes. Love it. Love your mentor.
Now seems like a really good time to go into our BU moment. Without explaining it, let's just jump into it and see where it brings us. So, Dr. Energy, you want to pick a card and see who goes first? Rock, paper, scissors. How do you want to do that?
I like to give our guest the pride of going first. So,
anticipatory. The energy just feels so good, and there's so much newness, and we're connecting to this new period 9 and the young freshness of the dragon, and the strategies are in place. It just feels really good.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rara, would you like to go next? Or
Sure.
Would you like to go last?
No, I'll go next because it's a strong feeling of trust. This BU moment for me feels like a circle of trust. And I know 3, well, it could be a triangle, but it feels like a circle. It feels like there's an energetic exchange. Like I was listening, really actively listening to what you were saying. Not that I don't, but I really felt engaged and invested in what you had to say and what Rhonda had to say. And I was sort of watching us all as if I were in front of a screen, and I was just missing my popcorn, really. Wanting to see what would unfold, and trust feels like that's required to have that sense of calm as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
And you, Dr. Energy?
Well, I'm going to go with 3 words that I've heard, 2 of them just now, and the third one Rhonda mentioned earlier. Courage, trust, and anticipatory or anticipation. Anticipate. I like the verbs because it's movement, whereas the noun is static.
Okay.
And the trusting in the moment, I was having a little bit of anxiousness, I would say, anxiety about having to move. So hearing that this is a good time to move this year, that really reaffirms some of the other energy that I was feeling. And so having the courage to lean into that move and disrupting my life as it currently is and creating something new has a real sense of anticipation about it. And along with that, Rhonda, you mentioned about the arts and the creativity aspect. I'll let a little bit of a cat out of the bag here. We're currently working on rebranding on our website, rebuilding a new website, creating that to make it better to serve our audience and our clients much more fully. So
you're
look out for that.
That you're moving at the beginning of a new period. It has 20 years to grow into something fabulous.
Exactly.
Right? Oh. Yeah, it's good. So excited for you.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Energy, I feel like when Rhonda posts her shares, when to get a haircut.
Yep.
When she does that, right?
Yep.
Like this is sort of giving everybody permission to look at things that might be out of reach ordinarily or usually, and look at it like it's time to get a haircut. That's what she tells us, right? When to do that. It's a good time to look at newness. It's a good time to look at moving. It's a good time to consider it because there's no better time to consider it than now.
Right.
Sort of like a bet,
Right.
like I bet if you did this, it would be a good idea.
I used to have.
Okay, there's that young dragon.
I used to have that thing where it
Yeah.
would take, 2 or 3 times getting hit in the side of the head to pay attention to something. Now, as soon as something comes to my awareness, I deal with it, right? I acknowledge it, accept it, and then you're able to move on more easily. And that haircut thing, I do that. I always look, okay, it's almost time for a haircut. When's a good time this month to get a haircut?
Full disclosure, I check it to shave my legs. So do I walk the walk, talk the talk? Yes, I
Yes,
do.
you walk the talk. Awesome.
And as it is right now, 222, we're back to 50 Shades of Gray, and we're always back on the same subject of what we do for our bodies and to prepare our bodies for what's ahead, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, Dr. Energy, Rhonda, this feels like a conversation that we could have again.
Less than 4 years this time, I think.
Exactly. With Rhonda's favorite beverage of choice, you
we're
have
doing-
the
okay.
candles.
Oh, I have an idea.
Okay, let's hear it.
A live podcast, or all of us
Let's
sitting
do it.
around a desk with a glass of wine.
Let's do it.
I
Well,
think
I
we should
open up.
do the
I
top-
open up
we
my
should do
home.
12 hours and do the top 5 minutes of every 12 hours after we've had a drink at the first one.
I don't think I can drink that
How
much.
much wisdom we have by the end of the 12
I can't
hours.
drink like that anymore. I'm sorry.
I don't say we have to do the whole 12 hours, but it'll be very different. Hour
Yes.
one.
We'll only make the first 2 hours available for the audience to see.
Do a 12 hour live stream of us
Yeah.
just talking about this kind of stuff.
Reality to have a whole new place to.
That would be
All
interesting.
right. Well, I propose that we could temporarily choose the location of Niagara on the Lake.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're on. You're welcome. Thank you for
Right.
being our guest today.
Ciao, babies.
Ciao. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Sharing is caring. Tell your friends about conversations worth having on BU Network. We really appreciate your reviews. Thank you.
For show notes and links, go to www.b-u.network/podcasts. Connect with us via our website, www.b-u.network, and build a relationship with us. Sign up to receive information, updates, and your free video training at www.b-u.network/pro.
We're looking forward to hearing from you, and thank you for being with us. Ciao.
Ciao, babies.